Well, the way that we establish the performance goals for patient flow and profitability begin with the profitability issue. How much do we need to make? That is the first step. As I've said countless times in all of my presentations for the last 30 years, we need to know your number. And that number is profits. So that really takes an assessment of your personal budget. How old are your children? Are you in a marriage? Are you in a relationship? Do you have school debt? With the school debt that the graduates have today approaching $500,000–$600,000 in some case, and when they're a specialist, it can approach $1 million. It's going to take a significant economic event to occur every year to be able to fund that obligation for the next 20 years. So that's where we begin with the business budget. It has to fund the personal budget. Then we assess the doctor's comfort level in managing patient flow, staff members, etc., and that will give us the confidence to help them commit to the right size facility. We're fans of a minimum of 4 operatories per general dentist. That will allow the dentist to have 2 operatories for themselves and 2 for their hygienists. The concept of a one hygiene general dental practice doesn't create enough recurring patient flow to keep the doctor busy from that internal source of patients. They then become new patient driven, and then we end up with the dilemma, well, I don't have any place to put the new patients in continuing care, so how do I take care of them? It creates a crisis. But once we assess what the economics are, production, collections, overhead, profitability, now we can establish the goals. And goals are broadly stated initially. I want to fill my practice up with happy patients. I want to fill my practice up with loving and happy colleagues, dental assistants, hygienists, assistants. I want everybody to love my vision and mission and be a part of it with me. But they've got to understand what that is so they can buy into it. Then we break it down. Each major goal has a subset of goals. And those subset goals may be, I need X number of new patients. I need a percentage of those new patients to accept treatment in order to fund the minimum production levels I'm anticipating in my budget every day, every month, every year. From that group, I need a certain percentage of them to reappoint for their continuing care appointment, because in a general dental practice, we want to grow the continuing care pool. We don't want to just meet patients and then never see them again. You know, dentists, I always say affectionately, are farmers. They grow a crop of patients, much like I did in my accounting firm years ago, and I took care of them on and on, ongoing for years. Specialists are more like hunters. They get the patient, they see them, and they're gone. We have specialists as clients. Different than a general dentist, they're not growing a pool, so they need to find a recurring patient pool to tie into, typically within their referring group. So once we know what the patient count issues are, new patients, reappointment percentage, we can assess how large is that continuing care pool going to be. And as a matter of fact, that's the very first statistic we work on. If you're going to have 2 hygienists, we know the number of patients you'll have scheduled in hygiene will be somewhere between 1,200 and 1,500 patients at maturity. If that isn't a large enough pool to keep you busy, doc, you may have to grow to a 3rd hygienist, although that can be a limitation in some states due to the Dental Practice Act. So that's the first one. We need to know our body count. That's what we call it, our body count, our patient flow. And we want to close the back door and have a 90% or higher reappointment rate. Secondly, what is our daily production goal? For the doctor, it's based on a combination of things. Their clinical philosophy, the type of procedure mix that they subscribe to, the fee schedule, their proficiency, are they using technology to get the work done? Are they doing a majority of the work? Are the assistants helping them wherever legally possible? The hygiene department goals, well, that's based on something altogether different. We have to establish what the doctor's clinical philosophy is for treating patients with periodontal disease. We have to conduct a survey to determine what percentage of the patients have those diseases, so that we can estimate the various procedures we're going to do based on our survey of our patient pool on a daily basis for adult prophies, child prophies, scaling and root planing, perio maintenance, and associated services that are offered. That establishes the hygiene goal. Once we know what these providers are going to produce, we know how many days they're going to work, we can forecast the annual revenue. Next, we have to assess the collection percentage, because not everyone collects 98 to 100% of what they produce because they're in network with a reduced paying insurance plan. And if that's the case, we have to calculate what the reimbursement rate's going to be. And that establishes our collection percentage. Associated with that is our accounts receivable balance to production ratio. Nobody wants to be owed money from customers. There's an old saying on the golf course, fast pay makes fast friends. So in dentistry and in all small business, our small business owners are not large enough to be able to house a finance department to continue to bill and collect. So collecting co-payments at the time of treatment is essential. Collecting from the insurance companies, you're a network, within the period of time that they pay has got to be determined as well. And that will allow us to establish that percentage. Case acceptance percentages are established as well. And then one of the last ones are new patient flow and then associated reactivation efforts. And all of what I just described will generate production and collections. Well, once we know what that is, we have to come back to our overhead assessments for dental supplies, lab, advertising, occupancy, labor, general and administrative, associate comp, if you have an associate, debt service, all of these things that drive cash flow. And then of course your CPA can pick it up from there and calculate the depreciation, amortization, and your tax liability. But that's how we go through the process.